Okay, we are to the point now where you guys have been given or assigned the first year woods project. So the SketchUp drawing, the one that says simplified. And if you open up that PDF, this is what it should look like. And you're just drawing these 5 rectangles. And so once you're done with this is basically what yours should look like, or at least close to this. And we can, if you want to, you can go over here to this dimension tool, and we can click on a corner and drag it down to another corner, and I can see that my measurements match up with what they're supposed to be. And I can hit escape to get out of there, and I can go to another one, click 14.5, 14.5, it's what it's supposed to be. And you can keep going like that and check all of your parts to make sure everything's the right size. But what this video is on is actually for taking your simplified project like this and turning it into a project like this where everything is combined and all our joints are done. And this, of course, is what we're actually going to be building. And so this will kind of show you how to make these changes and all these edits. So let's go back to our drawing that is where you guys are at. Here we are. So you've got an assignment recently for the updates, the edits to this assignment, and so those pieces of paper will remind you of those dimensions. This video is simply going to show you how to make them. So let's start with part A. So the first thing I have to do is I have to double click it, and that allows these dots to pop up around our block, which means that we are now editing this component. And then we want to use a new tool, and it's called the protractor tool, right over here on the left hand side. I click on that, and I get all these different kind of circles with marks on it. And if you just hover it without clicking anything, it should be green, red, and blue. If it shows up as black on any of your faces, you've probably made a mistake somewhere along the way and are going to need to do some corrections, and Mr. Grady will help you with that. So right now I want to be on the green side, and if I read in the bottom down here, it says place center of protractor. Okay, so I want my corner to be right here because we got to make this a 45-degree angle. So I click there, and now at the bottom again, it says align the bottom of our protractor. So I'm going to go with the bottom of our part, clicked there once, and now it's bringing me out there, and in the bottom right corner, it's telling me what angle I'm at. So for our last kind of thing here, we're going to type 45, enter, and then the line stays put at 45. Get our pencil tool, go back in here, and then we're going to make that a real line. We've got that. Push pull, and I want to push pull that corner out of there, and then I can delete my guide. And that's all the edits that we have to make to part A. So A is now done. Let's go to part B. So we got to make another 45-degree corner here. I double click to open it. I'm going back to my protractor tool. I'm going to click on the corner, the center of my angle, then on the bottom, and I'm going to go out towards 45, type 45, enter, and I've got my line there. Click on the pencil tool, and I'm going to fill that back in. Then we're going to click on push-pull and clear that out of there and erase our guideline. And now that edit's made. For the next part of this now, we have to make in woodworking what's called a dado cut. And so how we're going to do that is we're going to use our guide for measurements. And by looking at that picture, and you guys will have the assignments in front of you, we're going to start by using our tape measure tool over here. And we're going to go from the bottom, okay, and we are going to come up 7.25 or 7 1/4 inches. Oops, I want to go make sure that thing is highlighted blue so that we know we're going up. 7 1/4, there we go. And it tells me that my dado is going to be, so I'm going to 1 1/4. So I'm going to select my line, not over here at a corner, just anywhere on my line, so I can pull up a parallel line at 1.25, and then I'm going to hit enter. So that's what it should look like. Okay. And now between our guidelines, I'm going to go over here, select my rectangle tool, and I'm going to make a rectangle within my guidelines. Okay. And now that, it tells us, needs to be 5/8 of an inch deep. So I'm going to take that new rectangle I just drew, and I'm going to push pull it 5/8, 5/8 of an inch, enter, and that is where we want that. We can get rid of our guidelines again, go back to erase, and now part B is complete. So we have A done, we have B done. C is the easiest part in the world because you have to do absolutely nothing to it. And now we are going to make our edits to part D. So on part D, let's start with what's going to be a lap joint. But for you guys, it's kind of where we're going to cut this little rectangle out of the back of it. And we are going to do that first. We're going to double click our part. And now that means I'm going to change that. Get my tape measure. Come over here and click in the middle of that so that I'm bringing a parallel line up. And I'm going to bring that parallel line up 7.25 from the bottom. And then we can go up to the top and bring it down 6. And in between these should be 1 1/4 inches. That's what we like to see right there. So I've got that now. And then what we want to do is bring another tape measure, but this time from the side, kind of vertically. And we want it to highlight green coming in there. And we're going to come in 1 1/2 this time. So 1.5. There we go. And now, similar to like what we did before, I'm going to grab a rectangle tool. And I'm going to make a rectangle on that back corner between my guidelines. Then I'm going to get push-pull. And I want to push that out of the way. And our piece is 1 1/4 thick, so we go 1.25. And that will then cut that out of there. I can get my eraser, get rid of my guides, and now that part of that's done. We have one more thing to change on part D. And this is called a rabbit cut in woodworking, and it's kind of taking another little rectangle away. So we go down to the bottom, click on that line so that I bring a parallel line up, 1.25, enter. Go back to our rectangle tool, fill that in with the rectangle, push pull, and this time instead of going 5/8, this one only goes 1/4 of an inch deep. So 0.25, enter, erase my guideline, and now part D, all the changes have been made. So these 4 have now been changed. The last thing I've got to do is change part E. So again, double click. And what we're going to try to do to part E is we're going to cut out this corner right here so that this end fits into what we made here with our lap joint on part D. So grab our tape measure tool. Need a parallel line there. And we want to bring that in 1.25, 1 1/4. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing we did on D, where we bring a kind of this line to the middle. So that's 1.5. Right down the middle. So those two guides, and now this time we want to cut this corner out right here so that it allows this tab to fit right in there. So we will grab our rectangle tool like that, and now we're going to push pull that square out of there, eraser, get rid of my guides, and now that one's done. So now all that's left to do is to assemble all of these pieces. Let's start right in order. We'll go A to B, or excuse me, B to A, and then we'll work our way around. When you're moving things, it's important to think about what I want to have come together, where I want it to go. So if we take a look right here, I want this piece to come up and touch this piece, to kind of come together. So I want this corner right here to come up and join with this corner right there. So I'm going to select it, then I'm going to go get my move tool, and I'm not just going to click anywhere. I'm going to click right here. And as I move it, I have it by that corner now. And I can just bring it up until it hovers over endpoint of A, as it infers right there. And then I click again, and now my move is perfect. And you might want to orbit around by pushing on your scroll wheel and make sure that everything lines up exactly how you want. And then I go back and get my select tool and just click off of that. Okay, A and B are done. So now let's move B C to B. So I want to think again about how I want to do that. I would like this corner of C to move up to this corner of B. So I can get my move tool, hover right over that corner so that it says endpoint in C. Good. Move it up so that it's endpoint in B. Click again. And now I've moved those three together. So those three are all done. Now let's move D to C. So it's already touching, but we don't really want it to stay right there. We want this end to fit in that little rabbited section that we made. So this time, I want this corner of D to move up so that it's on this corner of C. So I go back over and get my move tool. And there's other points that you can pick. You don't have to pick these exact ones, but you want to make sure that you're picking specific points, not just anywhere. For example, if I grab right here and try to move it, I'm just guessing. It's never going to get there exactly where I need to because I didn't pick an exact point. But if I get right on that endpoint and I take it right to this other endpoint, now I can see that everything came together exactly how I want, matches up perfect. That's what we're looking for. And the last one that we have to move in then is obviously E into this whole assembly. In that situation, since I'm already at this view, I'm going to try to make this corner of E go right to this corner of B. Okay, so I get my move tool, grab that, and slide it right in there, lock it in place, and we should see it totally flush there, fill that lap joint right there so that we have it perfectly assembled. And that kind of brings us to the end of our final edits here. So you may want to go up and save what you did, go to File and save whatever you want to do. And then this is what we'll be turning in, and we'll do a little bit more with this later in a different video. But as far as the drawing goes, this is actually 100% complete, and that's it.